This episode was originally a live conversation which took place at Founders Tap in February 2024. Is everyone at Planted vegan?
100%, yes. No, of course. No, of course not. No.
Yeah.
No, we never hired for dietary habits, but for talent and mindset.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Ansuya.
Hi everyone, my name is Ansuya. I'm the additional host at Swisspreneur. You probably are familiar with Silvan if you've heard our podcast before. And we also get the opportunity to record such great live discussions as well. And just so you know, I'm also going to record the Q&A because we always get like insightful questions from the audience. And I regret not recording it in the past, so this time I want to do it. So hope that's okay with everybody. All right, so let's get into it. So Pascal Bieri, as we all know, is the co-founder at Planted. Pascal, if we look at your resume, most of the work you've done has been in the food industry. So what about it captivated you?
It was a bit fate, I guess, or I don't know, I guess bad luck or good luck, I'm not sure. But during my studies, I was very interested in industry in general because, I mean, think about it, right? You have goods, ABC, and you apply certain processes and you make something that's then better for the end consumer. In the best case, it's better for the planet also. But it was really by chance that I started in the food industry at Migros. And I don't think you stay long in the food industry without realizing that there are some pretty essential challenges or problems or difficulties connected with it.
Mm-hmm. Is that what kept you like keep going and working in industry? Like you wanted to see what else is going on, or you wanted to solve particularly some challenges as well already back then?
Yeah, I know. I don't think that would be truthful. What kept me in the first 5-6 years at Migros was the chance to work with very experienced very experienced food industry leaders, also internationally. I was able to move to the US together with Migros, Chocolate Frey to be exact. So I spent 3 years in Buffalo, New York, beautiful city. No, really, it actually is. Yeah, no, it wasn't like, I can work on big planetary challenges.
It's just one thing led to the other.
Yeah, it was really just like gaining experience. Yeah. The idea for Planted came in the US, reading about, and to my shame, I just reflected on it this lunch together with a journalist. To my shame, I only realized then, that was like, 7 years ago, how inefficient the protein industry is. Yeah. Like feeding so much into an animal just to then have a structured protein in the end that you eat, but you really needed like 25 times that protein that grew somewhere to feed into that animal. And realizing that inefficiency, I thought, hey, that's a real big challenge for this planet, a huge market, something that's dear to me. When I was 21, I founded the Green Liberal Party in Switzerland. I thought back then, in Lucerne, sorry, I thought politics would be able to change this planet for the better. And I came to realize it probably takes longer than the planet has.
Yeah.
So having had the chance to realize there is a whole industry that we need a better product for than this ancient technology called animal that is super inefficient, cruel, and pretty effed up in its size. Yeah, I think that together with, hey, I do have some experience from the food industry. I do know a lot of people, like my co-founders, who share my vision, and create better product and make a difference with product, not with politics. I think that all that together then drove that spirit of, hey, let's do this ourselves.
So how long into like you working in the food industry did this idea come about and you realized that, okay, I need to do something really tangible about this?
I think it was about 5-6 years into Migros.
Okay.
Knowing this wasn't going anywhere. And and then, we decided to try it ourselves, wrote a 2-pager, where, and I think that like we're turning 5 this summer as planted. And it's been quite a crazy ride, also from how you grow as a company and how many people we can reach and how cultural food is. It's a huge honor to do food, by the way, because it touches a lot of people daily. 5 years ago, we decided to do that in a clean, like a natural approach. We decided what we wanted to be as a company 5 years ago, and we're still that. And that makes me super proud.
Thank you. So that leads us to the topic for today, which is kitchen to market, scaling a sustainable food tech startup in Switzerland and beyond. So we're going to touch upon your experiences and how you internationalized, how you also did R&D. So the first question I have is, we all know that Planted isn't the first brand out there making vegan protein alternatives. So what sets Planted apart is that, it manages healthy and delicious protein alternatives. So tell us a little bit about the R&D process. Like, how did you come up with these recipes?
I used to say, and it wasn't that long ago, that we put ourselves, like when we develop products, that we wear handcuffs in product development because we said we only want to use natural ingredients and natural processes to make product. Then really it's not handcuffs, but it's a very, very clear guiding light. It's that North Star. Like in product development, we know exactly we can only use natural ingredients. We want to make a difference by understanding biotech better and physical processes within our production to make the best kind of product.
I think somewhere I'd read that you use essentially 4 ingredients
for the chicken. Yeah, for the first product,
the 4
and
ingredients.
I think that's an important USP.
Yeah,
when you sell Planted, basically, but it also gives a very clear guidance to the company that, hey, this is what we do, and yes, it would be super easy to add methylcellulose to make a burger, but guys, we're going to make a burger at some point. We just need to find the best solution to make this in a natural way, because we truly believe that the future of protein cannot be a chemistry set that you go buy at company XYZ and then act like you're a food tech company. I believe that we need to understand these processes and then apply it ourselves to make the best product.
And is it typical that like food companies like yourself do both the R&D and the production in-house?
No, I think that's and then also the marketing and the go-to-market and everything. No, that's a bit much, and a lot of people keep telling us that, and they're not wrong. But it's also something that sets us apart, right? We're not just that company that calls a factory in the Netherlands to say, hey, we need another 5 tons of this, and pack it into yellow packaging and call it something and sell it somewhere. We truly understand how crops grow, what kind of aspects we need in that crop to then transform into this color, this bite, this juiciness. I think that sets us apart. Then also production. We used to produce at ETH, just next to the university hospital. Not typically where you would set up a production, and I don't think it was it was only for 1 year. However, we did our first million Swiss franc in revenue out of ETH in 2 shifts in the end during COVID, and scaled then to Kemptal, our factory now, where we used to make a ton a day. Now we're at 15 tons a day, using less production employees. We were production employees ourselves, but using less labor.
Right.
So the rest is scale, the rest is automation, the rest is digitalization in the factory. And I think being a company that knows how to do that, now with the steak that we just launched, the fermented muscle that we're building, or that we're fermenting in a fermenter chamber, we know exactly that we can scale this up to a few tons a day, an hour as well, because we've done it before. I think that that's an important when we do food, because food in the end, if you want to have impact, especially in protein, you need scale.
So how does it work, like the whole sort of production process? If you walk us also through your supply chain, and then how do you also ensure, the Swiss quality? I mean, we're already hearing that you're going all the way to like how the crops are produced and the quality starting right from there. So if you could tell us a bit about that.
We always leveraged especially in the beginning, we leveraged the name ETH pretty nicely. We got a lot of samples from a lot of companies internationally to work with and to try out that pea protein and that pea protein. They're never exactly the same. So we needed to understand what sometimes batch, sometimes that company does pretty continuous quality, so you want to work with them rather than maybe one that fluctuates a bit more.
Right.
So like choosing the right suppliers, it has always been important to us. Now obviously a bit on a different scale than it used to be.
Yeah.
But now we're at a point where people who make plant-based proteins pretty much all across the world would reach out and give us samples so we can try out and give them feedback.
So how does it affect as you scale to ensure that you have this quality across your suppliers?
I'm not in that process too much anymore, but I think it's a lot about trusting your supplier.
Yeah.
I mean, having, of course, asking the right questions, knowing who they are, knowing how they work, but you can tell, like, testing 2 batches and having 2 identical ones, it's already a pretty good sign that they are consistent.
Right.
But no, in the end, none of our raw materials are always exactly the same. We need to adapt, almost by the minute at the extruder, for example. If we need to slow down the screw a bit or heat it up a bit, or these things happen now thanks to our algorithms that we programmed. So we work with natural ingredients, which means you have certain fluctuations, but that final product that we're making needs to stay the same.
Could you tell us a bit about the steak that you were talking about? I'm just curious, like how you're developing that. I'm sure a lot of people here would also want
that holy grail. We just super proud about that. Just last week, yesterday, I think we announced it to the press. There's about 40 or so restaurants that are currently live with the steak across the DACH region. We launched in Hamburg on Monday with Tim Meltzer at the Bullerei. The same time in Vienna with Le Burger. In Switzerland, there's about 12 restaurants currently live. I just was in Lausanne at a launch event. And what we do with the steak, from a commercial perspective, is exactly the same that we did with the chicken, our first product out of ETH. We have limited capacity. We're scaling up like crazy.
Yeah.
We have built all this fantastic customer base all across Europe. We could basically just take that steak, that fermented muscle, cut it into steaks, and drive it into that customer base. Now, we need to find out what accounts are the right ones to start out with. And just like chicken, we start out in food service, in the restaurants, having a waiting list for restaurants, then selling into more until we have enough capacity to go into retail.
So by producing, vegan protein, your company is already more sustainable than most. But does this principle
most animal protein companies? Yeah.
Just the fact that you're doing that, right, makes it more sustainable. But
a lot, yeah.
Does it also, does the principle extend to everything you do? So packaging as well, supply chain. You touched upon it a little bit. Yeah.
I think it's a problem that a lot of startups are facing. If you're doing something so groundbreakingly sustainable or new, a lot of your customers or community will ask for the perfect solution all over. Like we should probably pack in a banana leaf that's compostable, that's grown in Switzerland, and
right.
and then we have 2 days of shelf life, and that wouldn't be sustainable either. To have all that waste in retail because it isn't sold fast enough. So I think there's probably a line you need to walk as a startup until if you wait for that final perfect product that is perfectly packed
end to end.
I don't think you'll ever hit the market.
Yeah.
So in our case, for packaging, yes, I mean, we don't love plastic, but it's we have recycled plastic and recyclable plastic because it's a monomaterial. That was enough for us to say, let's go, let's hit the market. I mean, we have more than 20 days shelf life that all the retailers want from us. And there, I think, yes, in a way, it's a compromise. But like I said, if you wait for the perfect solution, you're never going to hit the market. And then also super local sourcing, right? We're sourcing from Europe. Do take whatever we can out of Switzerland because our production is in Switzerland still. If you wait until like the legislation changes, and that actually has changed last year for Switzerland. Now we can source in Switzerland, at least part of it, because they don't grow enough yet. But if you wait for that to happen, then what are you waiting for? So I think there is a certain compromise to make,
right?
But within the reason. And our reason was, let's use European proteins for the European market, which I do think makes a lot of sense. But yes, the perfect solution would be locally grown, locally transformed into whatever structure you want to have it for the end consumer, and then packed as sustainably as possible, or consumed super fast. I mean, that's the...
That's true. I mean, you're anyway, I think, one of the probably the most popular vegan protein brands. So I think the consuming it super fast part should not be hard.
Yeah, I love to think that. Yeah, but the reality is there are certain retailers in certain areas where it doesn't, or longer shelf life helps to a certain degree.
So question then about the shelf life, like, does that in any way like affect the quality of the food, and like how do you also maintain that shelf life?
A huge challenge, right? I mean, certain sales are pushing for longer shelf life. That customer's asking for longer shelf life, yes, but do we want to use a vinaigrette to make that, the pH level lower? No.
Right.
Do we want to use additives? No. So like that's also a bit of a challenge that you need to find an answer to. Right. But I think every partner of ours, our sales people, they do understand that these guidelines that we have, and not using any additives and not using the classic tricks of the food industry, is actually a huge plus for us. And it might take a while to extend shelf life through another process. But hey, so far we managed pretty nicely. Great.
And so nowadays, I mean, you're present in 6 different countries. Correct me if I'm wrong, if it's more.
I think it's a bit more, but yeah. Strategically, 6, 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
But obviously, there was once a time when you had to convince your first retailers to stock their shelves with planted. So what were the main difficulties there, and how did you overcome them?
Hey, the funny thing is we didn't have to convince our first retailer. I don't think we had to convince in the first few years ever a retailer. They always came to us.
And I would like to add like my personal experience on this, because I feel like before I tried planted, I mean, not to diss on the other brands, but the other brands were not tasting good. So I think that already, helped that you had a tasty product.
Did you experience planted in a restaurant first?
I think I did, yes.
Yeah. That would be a typical consumer journey for us.
Yeah.
And obviously COVID didn't help 9 months after we founded the company. But we started out selling into restaurants, local restaurants here in Zurich. We delivered by bicycle from ETH, by tram, by mobility, and then moved into, like, when we had a few kilos more, we were able to distribute to certain distributors like Bianchi or Pistor, food distributors that go into restaurants. But we always made sure that our protein was branded on the menu, whether it was a restaurant Barranco or the Limatladen, the banh mi place, fantastic banh mis. They always wrote planted on the menu, so we made sure that people understood what they were eating. It really helped getting a conversation going with Co-op. They came to us because they're also human beings that go eat somewhere, or their friends do, or their family do, and then they come back with, hey, this product is fantastic, you need to list it. So they wanted to list us. And I think there are these transformational moments, right, when you found a company, or in I guess every company journey, you have these moments. And ours, I think, was an early one was when we didn't know how to make the quantity that Co-op wanted. We were at ETH and they were saying, oh, we only start in 100 stores. You won't need that much. But we need 2 SKUs, 2 different chickens. Yeah. We only had the nature chicken, the original, without any marinade. So, and Rolf Hiltel was an early investor and he was a board member, and he said, well, my team at Hiltel makes a marinade for you. You add that to the chicken, and we had 2 products. Still, we didn't know how to make that, so we were working super hard on the plan, how to scale up ETH to a point where we can deliver to restaurants and still onboard new restaurants, but Co-op at the same time. So we had to look for a packaging solution for a co-packer, somebody that delivered into Co-op. And we, at that moment, obviously bit off a bit more than we were able to chew. However, like 3 months after we launched that Co-op, everything shut down. And all our customers in food service were gone for a while. If we weren't able to scale through with Co-op, like adding stores after stores after stores, I think the company wouldn't be where we are today. That's really it might not even be here, because I don't think at that time when everything shuts down, retailers are screaming. A situation that we've never seen before. We couldn't have called Co-op and said, no, now we're ready to list. So the same then was when we entered Germany. We weren't able to do the playbook exactly like we wanted to. We weren't able to talk to restaurants as much as we wanted to because they were closing them and opening them. And Austria and Germany were quite different than Switzerland during COVID. But I think also there we moved into Germany knowing we had a superior product, thinking we were able to do it at a different price point than for the German consumer, and I think learned a second very valuable lesson for us as a company, that if we can support the price point that a consumer knows at a certain shelf or for certain products, at least in food, I think software might be different, I'm not sure. You're going to stay niche, you're not going to have that impact that you wanted to. And we learned then and there as a company that it's not even worth it to scale technologies where you cannot at least try to get to a price point that is way below animal meat in the future. And certain technologies, you won't be able to do that. For the technology that we just launched now, the fermentation platform, I think we are able to undercut price of animal meat by a lot. And I think that is a reason why I'm so not just that the steak is fantastic, but it's a platform that will allow us to undercut the price of animal meat and make that impact.
This episode was brought to you by Google Cloud, a partner that needs no introduction. What you might not have heard of, though, is that Google offers a Google for Startups cloud program where they give you access to startup experts, technical training, business support, and cover your Google Cloud costs up to $200,000 for 2 years, or even $350,000 if you're an AI startup. Scale your startup faster and smarter with Google Cloud. Head over to goo.gle/Swisspreneur.
And do you know, from statistics, that you're also then having meat eaters consuming your products as well?
Yeah, I think it's most of our consumers are flexitarians typically. Okay. I still wouldn't want to lose the vegans and vegetarians. Honestly, it's a super important consumer group also. But I think most people, especially in urban areas, consider themselves flexitarians, and it's a big consumer group of planted.
And you didn't have to market or sell that differently to convince the flexitarians to consume the products?
I think driving physical availability was super important. You can spend so much on mental availability. If you don't have the physical one, it's not worth it. Yeah. Even if you have a D2C solution, we do have a web shop ever since a few months after we founded the company, but so realizing that physical availability also drives a certain mental availability just by itself. If you brand every restaurant and every...
I think that was probably the smartest thing you guys did. I think it was like a domino effect. Because, at that time, I remember I'm going to restaurants and I see everywhere, there's planted on the menu. And I was like, what is this? And then when you see it at multiple restaurants, obviously it registers in your mind. Yeah. and then, you see it in the Coop. And I think that really was one of the, I would say, brilliant strategies that was executed.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And we were really we were a sucker for it. Like, there was a restaurant in Geneva, I recall, and we didn't visit that restaurant personally. I mean, we were like 6 people, a bit hourly also, like students who were working with us in the in ETH production, and we sent 8 kilos by Swiss Post every week to the restaurant. And then at some point, like, I saw a picture online where they just called it vegan chicken, and they're like, no, we're not selling to them anymore. We called them and said, look, we won't sell it to you anymore unless you call it planted. And they're like, no, our whole restaurant is unbranded. We don't do that. In the end, they branded it. But I think it's important to really be a sucker for that one.
Right.
Then.
So another, aspect about expanding to these different markets, especially when you're talking about food, it's a touchy subject because it ties in so closely with the local cultures. So would you say that, you need to know the markets you're getting into much better than other types of companies do because of this close connection to cultural aspects?
I don't know for other companies, but I think food, yes, has a very, very a need for local adaptation. I think Beyond Meat that started to come to Europe just when we started Planted, and we thought, oh my God, we're way too late. They're here. They didn't have the European palate, and then they changed. I think they learned that the hard way. The good thing at Planted is that we do most of our revenue with the natural product, the product that is either just the 4 ingredients for the chicken, or I think it's 1 more protein for the pulled pork, or the kebab that has a very kebab-y marinade, and I think that works in most European markets. Or some kebab places use the chicken and marinate it themselves. But having that natural product and that you let chefs kind of work themselves allowed us to. Yeah, it was like chicken, you know what I mean? Like, chicken tastes the same everywhere, but then people apply different marinades to it. Yeah. And we learned that, we didn't have to travel to other markets to learn that. We learned that by working with a Peruvian restaurant in Zurich and a Kronenhalle that was used a very creamy dish. Like, different pH levels need to work with your product. Different kind of spice mixes can't bring out a different kind of pea taste. So we learned making a very, very, not perfect, but a very, very good product that keeps getting better, that is adaptable to each kind of market. And for probably a good example for how we developed the French market on top of being there with us as a brand and our own team, going to retailers and restaurants, we work with a big meat company called Fleury Michon that has... I think somewhere around 90% household penetration rate in France. So it's a known brand, and they know the French palate, and they buy our chicken, apply 2 French marinades that then is distributed into French retail as a co-branded product. And not just, were we able to, piggy bank on that relationship to then scale into all these retailers, but also we were able to use, or they were able to use a natural product like ours, applying a French taste to it and winning the French market with it.
For those of you who are getting hungry like me, we have some samples that is generously brought for us, so afterwards we'll get to have a taste of all of this as well. So which markets do you plan on expanding to next? I
learned before Planted that just expanding into markets non-strategically can uses a lot of resources, and at the end you have nothing but maybe a container in Australia and a container in Dubai and something somewhere, and nobody recognizes whether the brand nor the product has. Right. Anyway, I think luckily learned that before Planted. I think there's a lot that we need to do in Europe still. Mm-hmm. When I think about these 15 tons that we produce right now in Kemptal, 75 of which get exported. But even if we kept everything in Switzerland, all these 15 tons, it would still be less than 2% of the protein consumption in Switzerland. It's nothing.
Wow.
Like honestly, yeah, I'm glad we're doing something, but there's such a big market out there that we can still capture in Europe. I don't think we need to just go abroad to find our luck somewhere. But depending on certain developments here, together with maybe certain technology partnerships abroad, why not?
All right. So I would like to conclude with two important questions, which I know you get asked a lot. One is everyone at Planted vegan?
100%, yes. No, of course not. No.
Yeah.
No, we never hired for dietary habits, but for talent and mindset. But I think it would be weird if you joined Planted as an avid meat eater, which would be cool, and then still ate the same amount of animals after a year. I think you naturally get more exposed to the facts of animal husbandry and of the negative effects of it. So I think you tend to go a certain direction.
Yeah, makes sense. And another important question is, which of your Planted protein products is the most beloved at your headquarters?
I think most of our team members would probably say pulled. The second product that we launched that is made with pea protein and then sunflower and oat protein has a very distinct taste, has a very wide range of appliance that you can cook everything with it. It's not a typical it's a product that we didn't do after a meat product. I think it's actually its own kind of
has its own identity.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
And most people really love the how widely you can use it. It probably will be the steak pretty soon. But for now, I think it's still the pulled pork.
Are the steaks available at Coop or not yet?
Not yet.
I would be curious to try that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you have to wait super long for it, but give us a few weeks or months.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Pascal, for answering my questions. And now I'd like to open it up to the audience for questions from you.
Good evening, everyone. My question is simple and hard in the same way. What is the biggest challenge your company and you personally are facing right now? Thank you.
Biggest challenge, it's right now upscaling the new technology. We've done it before and our team knows it, we know it, we can do it. But still that crunch time at midnight, certain valves might not work. It's a physical product that we need to produce 10 times as much as we do now. And that brings it a lot of challenges. And then it's like the communication around it together with the teams. Where do we sell what? How do we communicate what? I mean, we just did our PR launch with the steak and the good thing is we get a lot of PR. The bad thing is everybody wants a steak now and we don't have enough. There are certain times our product development has animal products to taste against. Yeah, not too much, but it happens.
Other questions?
Ciao, Pascal. Did you ever pivot your company fundamentally?
Fundamentally, no. Certain things might get more importance at a certain time, right? You see potential in D2C that it didn't see before. Like, for example, a few months after we founded the company, we learned that a not guilty employee told us that he sold Planted in 100-gram portions to people who wanted to cook it at home. And we were like, oh, that's interesting. I mean, it's not really the goal of selling it to you as a restaurant, but it's a huge opportunity. So we created a web shop in pretty short amount of time. And it used to be 10% of our revenue, the web shop, and now it's a lot less. It's still relevant, so we don't kill it. But it's not a fundamental pivot, but it's something it's an opportunity we jumped on. And maybe at some point it's an opportunity to not do it. But no, I couldn't think of a fundamental pivot.
I have a follow-up question on that. So where does most of your revenue come from?
It's almost 50% from food service and restaurants and gastronomy in general. We call it food service at Planted, food service and industry, where you must imagine a restaurant just Kronenhalle, but then there's also accounts like Dean & David, Deutsche Bahn, Brezelkönig, bigger accounts. But I think it's important to also have these local hero restaurants that cook with planted and make amazing meals. So it's a bit less than 50%, and then retail is about 50%, and then there's a little bit of D2C. Yeah, and sometimes it depends on the market. I think Austria is much stronger in retail than not much, but a little stronger in retail than in food service. Germany is about 50-50.
You mentioned that you didn't really need to pursue customers, right? That they came to you. So I'm curious, how is it today? I think the market is much more saturated. It's probably harder to get into distribution and sell. How do you today distinguish yourself to the competition? Is it price, taste, application? What's your USP these days?
Yeah. Hey, no. You misunderstood me in that, or I brought that across the wrong way. Then we never didn't chase no customers. Like in food service, we always talk to restaurants and tried to talk with as many as possible. And even now, a huge funnel that converts at a certain speed. But retail in the beginning was very driven by the retailer wanting to start. Still happens, luckily, thanks to knowing. I think when you look at the food tech landscape in Europe or even in the world, you see that there's not that many companies that really do the understanding of plant-based proteins, the transition towards a structured protein over to knowing how to like pack it and market it. There's not that many, and I think there's one who's really proven who can actually like execute on it on that plan. So, but yes, obviously we do pitches with international retailers and bigger chains, and sometimes the question is, how strong is our brand already? Like, do we need to work longer, or how much do we need to invest in that brand in that certain market for it to have enough recognition so a retailer wants it? The one USP that has never not worked, sometimes it takes a bit longer, obviously, sales cycles, but the clean ingredients, the no additive, the product speaking for itself, that is not just our guiding star when it comes to like product development and what do we want to do as a company, but also in sales, the most important argument, I'd say.
What are you using for your steak? I missed it. The fermentation. What's the basis for it?
I didn't say. The basis is a soy protein in that case.
Okay.
There's 2 other proteins that we add to it. And then there is cultures.
Yeah.
And they get then fermented in a chamber
Have
for
you looked at
a few
pilts
days.
Or
Sorry?
fungi? Have you looked at pilts and fungi?
That is a fungi culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then the other question is a broader one on the industry. Plant-based foods had a huge run, and then kind of a winter, and a lot of companies are having funding problems. Do you foresee consolidation in the industry? And is that something that, I know you're a young company, but still you could potentially have opportunities there to partner or acquire?
Yeah. There's been a few reasons, I think, for the run in plant-based meat. And one that I see personally is that when most people don't realize that they eat 50% of the proteins that we eat, animal proteins or meat or animal meat, we eat out of home. We eat in restaurants and canteens and on the go. And when COVID basically shut down that part, I think a lot of people weren't ready to buy all that meat in supermarkets, honestly, and might have not realized how much meat they ate like out of home, and naturally converted to these then available options. What didn't help is that a lot of these products that then came to market were maybe not as good in terms of, I don't want to be a judge on these products, but the repurchase rate wasn't good enough. And hey, if you reach to the wrong product, you might never go back to that shelf again for 2 years. And I think retailers have learned that the hard way, as well as some companies have. And then, yes, founding has not dried up, but it's a lot tougher to get to after the interest rates have started increasing. I think the consolidation that happened in the market was not just a negative one. It took out a lot of truly inefficient companies and bad product. And I think it might go on for a while. And there are probably going to be opportunities to partner up with certain companies. That might be true. Certain ones might be interesting to look at, yeah. But also, and for us as Planted, I think, going through a cycle where money was almost for free, right, until it's not, like it drives a different kind of reason at making decisions as well. And working towards more profitability now, certainly.
Hello. I wanted to ask about branding. If branding, marketing, communicating your brand has been an important part of your overall growth strategy, and if so, what were the key steps or initiative you took in that space?
I think the most crucial initiative we took is branding it on restaurant menus. Really like touching people in that 360-degree angle where people move, whether it's at gas stations where we have products that we make together with our Ritsta. For example, a curry, kind of like strudel that's on the hot plate, together with, like, you find it in a Planted sachet, or on restaurant menus where you see Planted. I think that kind of like presence wherever you have a potential to touch food is important. And then working together with ambassadors is another important one, I think, that you can leverage sometimes. Yeah, in a very interesting way, also online. One of our investors, Jan Sommer, did a campaign with us, I believe it was last October, and just seeing how much better that campaign performed than others, I think speaks to engaging certain ambassadors maybe a lot more for the future, or might also work in that sense. So yeah, we're trying to learn and apply that for the future.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I was wondering, I mean, we've seen that Planted have grown crazy in 5 years, and I was wondering how could you, or what is the secret that you could scale up at such high speed to reach like these volumes, these production volumes, and also how did you manage also in 5 years to create like a company culture, or what were the challenges as well you faced?
I think it's a question that might play into each other. The company culture of biting off a bit more than we can chew is very much driven by us and our leadership, and always believing that we can do it. If we can't, we'll find a solution for it and pivot around it. But hey, on the speed, I think it probably could have gone even faster. I think if the space hasn't cooled down due to poor consumer experience, we probably could have, as a space of plant-based proteins, we probably could have reached more people or made more people regular consumers. Whereas I think if my parents were like to try out that shelf, if they didn't know me, if they tried out that shelf and reached the wrong sausage and they never go back to it again, and that thing happens, right? And so if we didn't have that downturn, I think and part of it is due to bad product in the market, I think we probably could have, as an industry, gone broader. But nevertheless, yes, I think thanks to our engineering team and thanks to us pushing and going into production ourselves and delivering, like everybody knows that we do everything for the success of this company, and the whole company knows that everybody's doing. Like our culture is very much non-ego driven, but what's best for Planted is what we do. And I think that allows a lot of people go the extra mile, and people know that if they go the extra mile, the other person goes the extra mile too. I think one thing that we always said early on, and maybe not so much lately, but hey, it's a lot of people want to work for Planted, and that's fantastic. I think it's great to have all these talents and CVs in front of us and people wanting to join us on that mission. But we always said it's not like if you want a 9-to-5 or something easy and just a good salary, it's probably the wrong place to come work for. And just having that kind of hungriness within the team, certainly part of the culture, together with a good sense of you have freedom to fail. We probably should learn from it and not do it a second time. A good sense of you work with brilliant people, fun people. I think that's also an important one for a young company. Then, probably part of the cultural success, I'd say.
Well, thank you, Pascal, for not only making plant-based protein, but also making it tasty and clean. That's, I think, something we would expect from a Swiss company for sure. So big round of applause for Pascal. And
we hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.